Tech Knight's Origins. The Boys. Have you ever wondered what it would be like if Batman tried to get it on with Alfred under the sheet? Or maybe if Iron Man tried to force himself on Ultron? Well, when you club two powerhouse superheroes and give them a sick mentality and an uncontrollable urge to make love to anything with a hole, you get Tech Knight. He was an eccentric billionaire operating out of a cave and had no actual superpowers, but was a founding member of the supergroup called Payback. Tech Knight built himself an uber-powerful mech suit, which he used as an alternative to superpowers. However, he soon developed a fist-sized tumor in his brain, and after this, he went wild. Tech Knight did a lot of nefarious things that comic book readers can't even imagine, let alone anything else. However, it is known that Amazon Prime's The Boys holds no qualms for depicting all the graphic and R-rated stuff, and if it's one thing that we love about The Boys, it's that the show doesn't water down its source material. So there's quite a possibility that Tech Knight may appear soon on this batshit crazy show. In this video, we will explore Tech Knight and his tryst with the world. Without further ado, let's dive deep into the 4 comic issues which delve into Tech Knight's origin.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Who is Tech Knight? Tech Knight was one of the supes who created the villainous supergroup Payback. As far as Payback is concerned, you can compare it with any of the evil groups of supervillains from the DC or the Marvel universes. However, it is important to note that Tech Knight is more of a mantle that the person holds. The current Tech Knight is actually the 3rd one to hold this title, while the previous 2 versions of Tech Knight were called Steel Knight. Interestingly enough, Tech Knight is different from the other superheroes in the Boys universe because he could never get his hands on Compound V or the superhero serum. Distraught by this, he chose to depend entirely on technology. So one may say that Tech Knight's character is somewhat based on Batman. I mean, he sometimes operates from a cave that houses his headquarters. Apart from having no actual superpowers, Tech Knight has a sidekick named Ladio. This is something else that separates him from the other supervillains in the franchise. Tech Knight would go about his regular villainous activities until one day a large tumor the size of a fist started to grow inside his brain. The tumor resulted in Tech Knight developing an overpowering sense of hedonism. He developed an uncontrollable urge to make love to just about anyone and anything. In his own words, if it had a hole, he could do it. Well, that's some twisted stuff, but that's precisely the kind of stuff that The Boys comics were famous for, or should we say, notorious. Nevertheless, let us explore issues 7 through 10 of the comics and dive deep into this supervillain with an undying sexual psychosis. The comic begins with Tech Knight sitting in a psychiatrist's chamber where he discusses his exceedingly uncontrollable urge to stick his stick into just about anything he can find, be it a hole in his cave or his robotic colleague. The doctor asks Tech Knight to describe his ordeal from the beginning. So Tech Knight and other members of Payback got tipped off about a certain terrorist army trying to infiltrate. He flew with Mind Droid, Stormfront and others to the location, but the tip-off turned out to be false. On their way back, Tech Knight's mind was struck with the strangest thought that ever occurred to him. But strangely, this thought seemed very normal to him at that time, almost natural. He happened to notice Mind Droid's rear end, and I mean really notice it. He tried to get it on with Mind Droid, the robot, but of course that didn't come to pass. The unacceptable behavior led to Tech Knight being expelled from the second most powerful superhero team, a team he once founded. The next thing we know, Tech Knight found himself in the company of his niece's chinchilla, and let me assure you, the encounter with Tech Knight didn't end well for the rodent. Tech Knight was later seen by his sister burying the pet rodent, and of course, she banished him from seeing her daughter again. The psychiatrist left Tech Knight for a while to take a phone call, but returned to find himself disgusted by what Tech Knight had done. The shrink picked up his cup of coffee to find something floating in it, and he doubted that it must have been the cat. But then Tech Knight asked for some burn ointment while holding his crotch. The doctor had seen enough and asked Tech Knight to get out of the chamber and ordered him to never return. Meanwhile, the boys learn that the superhero legend's sister's grandson had been killed, and the legend suspects the superhero Swingwing to be behind it. Now, Swingwing used to be Tech Knight's Ladio, but he left Tech Knight to find his own cause and purpose. Tech Knight returns to his cave and finds the current Ladio working out. As the sidekick bends down to stretch, Tech Knight feels the urge to do his own ward. The feeling fills him with disgust, and he sends off his ward on a superhero quest. He asks Ladio to visit all the superhero groups of the world and train under them. Ladio tells him that it could take years, but that's exactly what Tech Knight wants, to be away from Ladio for as long as possible. Huey and Butcher begin investigating the kid's brutal murder, but doesn't seem to reach any conclusion. They wish to meet Swingwing, their prime suspect, but they'll have to knock on many doors before they are able to meet Swingwing. Meanwhile, at Tech Knight's mansion, he is asking his butler to reconsider leaving him. Tech Knight begs his butler not to leave the service, as the butler had been serving the family for quite some time. It is here that Tech Knight's real name is revealed to be Robert Vernon. It turns out that Tech Knight had assaulted the poor butler's ear. Trust me, friends, I was as shocked as you are when I read the comics. I do not want to sound weird, but the butler did have other holes, right? Why the ear? Nevertheless, the butler leaves with a promise to take all of Tech Knight's secrets to the grave. Huey and Butcher connect the dead kid to a gay bar and decide to make a visit. From one of the patrons, they learn that Swingwing and Tech Knight used to visit the bar on a regular basis, and while Swingwing used to speak to the members of the bar with enthusiasm, Tech Knight hated being there. The scene shifts to Tech Knight's mansion, where he is over a call with someone mysterious. The guy on the other side tells Tech Knight that his dirty secrets have been revealed to Vought American, and that his suspension from payback might turn into a termination. Tech Knight asks the man about the person who spilled Tech Knight's beans, but all his requests turn into ashes. However, just before the call is disconnected, Tech Knight is told that it was Ladio who had informed Vought about his dirty secrets. Later, Butcher and Huey land up at Tech Knight's door. He was calling out to Thomas, his butler, to open the door, but realized that he was gone. Tech Knight then removes his uniform in haste and opens the door, where the boys ask him if, by any chance, he was the Tech Knight. If you think the comic was getting over the top, you have to wait till I finish explaining this one. So, Butcher and Huey storm into the Vernon mansion and begin looking around. They enter the library, where Butcher tries to find the books that start with the alphabet P. All the while, Vernon tells the guys he's not the one they're looking for, and that he's definitely not Tech Knight. However, Butcher finds a book written by Edgar Allan Poe, and it settles the dust around Vernon's identity as Tech Knight. He gives in to the men, believing that they were the government instead of law enforcement, and clearly he doesn't want any more trouble than he already had. He tells the boys that Swingwing is gay, and that they should be looking for Swingwing instead of himself. The boys ask him for Swingwing's whereabouts, but he claims not to know it. Furthermore, he threatens them that he is reaching the limit of his civil behavior, and the boys show themselves out. However, it's not long before the millionaire socialite's identity reaches the newspapers. In addition to that, the papers mention his perverted nature and how he tried to rape the butler. The boys pay Tech Knight another visit. Only this time, they were more prepared to fight him off. Tech Knight breaks down in no time and reveals about Talon, a young girl with superpowers who often switched sides. She was the kind of person who was stopping crime when she was not stopping it. At this point, I cannot help but smell Batgirl. Do you? Nevertheless, what Tech Knight revealed next blew everyone's mind. So, Talon, Tech Knight, and Swingwing, who was then serving as Tech Knight's Ladio, realized that they were nothing but playing a game of chess. Essentially, they were all birds of the same flock. But then Talon disappeared, only to return after 2 years. The trio met for a get-together, and there was alcohol, there was music, you know how it goes. One thing led to another, and Tech Knight found himself on a couch where Talon and Swingwing were making out. All hell broke loose when Tech Knight found himself becoming a part of this one-night stand. To give you perspective, Swingwing was his ward, and the two men were making love to the same girl. With his truth out in the open, Tech Knight lost all his respect among the superhero community as well as the common people. He found himself alone amidst a sea of humanity. While taking a stroll out on the streets, he noticed that a mother and her child were going to get smashed under a wheelbarrow full of bricks. He launched himself to stop the calamity, but got his head struck by the bricks. That was the end of Tech Knight, but in his mind, he died a valiant death. Apparently, Tech Knight's mind made him believe that the Earth was caught in the way of a meteor storm. A massive meteor was heading towards the Earth, and the impact would be catastrophic enough to annihilate the planet. Tech Knight flew to outer space and made such hard love with the big meteor that it exploded, and the impact of the explosion killed Tech Knight.
I mean, they fucking love me.
Why is Tech Knight a perfect member for 7 in the live-action version of The Boys? Amazon Prime's The Boys is not known to dilute the R-rated content of the source material. The Boys comics are anything but suited for children, and I must say, they are a little too offensive for even adults. If you think about it, from Butcher's vibrant vocabulary to all the exploding anuses and the brutal death sequences, the live-action show becomes exceedingly depraved as the series progresses. And this was the case with the comics. As the storyline progressed, the comic panels began depicting things that readers never expected. So, with such a setting, it wouldn't be a surprise if the showrunners brought Tech Knight into the fold and depicted him going after anything and everything: man, woman, animals, and objects. Having said that, it may seem unlikely to some that Amazon will allow the extremely graphic scenes from the comics to be translated into live action. But have no doubts, people, the things we have seen in The Boys were never anticipated in any other show about superheroes. So, basically, anything is possible. I am wondering what you thought about this hedonistic superhero. Do let us know in the comments.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.